Hello, friends and folks. My screen name is Covert Muffin, and we are back here with the Ori and the Will of the Wisps MQO Tournament here in the wonderful year 2023, featuring off a bracket round 2 stage, featuring off Seaal versus Lix. And so Lix battling it out in the round 1 to be able to come up against the 3rd seed Seaal. And so that being said, I'm very excited for this match. This could be potentially one of the closest races in the entire tournament. And I could not cast this alone. So joining me here today is none other going to be Turtle. Turtle, how are you doing, my friend?
I am so ready for a great day of Ori Muffin. Even though it might take a while to start, it will start, and we will blast through this run. Both of our runners, top tier MQO runners, and I can't wait to see them compete against each other.
Yeah, I think it's pretty fascinating, like with this tournament in general, right? It's a fairly small tournament. Yes, we only have like 12 people who ended up going through the qualifiers and ended up making it to brackets. And so we had that first round, right? And so the first round really was just sort of like trying to bring us into that like sort of top 8 runners to like feature off the bracket. And so each of these matches, right, there's a lot on the line for our runners, right? Like that single elimination setup in order to be able to move on to a round can be like pretty stressful, right, Turtle?
Yeah, absolutely. You make one critical mistake and you can just be out of the tournament. And we have even already seen a bit of a minor upset in when our 10th seed Dolori beat Mava by 8 seconds in an earlier race. So even amongst the lower seeds, anything can switch up the race, and between higher seeds, it just gets that much more intense.
Yeah, if you are on a desktop PC, down below there actually is a few useful links, both for just sort of the overall tournament sort of format if you like to read some things, but then also we actually have the bracket itself. And so starting off with just like the initial round 1 results, we have Datto versus Cheese, where Datto was able to take that one, like, and that one was like very exciting, right? Seeing the 8th seed versus the 9th seed, right? That middle of those like seedings can always be some of the most intense and exciting matches, right? And then in the second match, we had Bobby's, who ended up taking it versus you, Turtle. I'm sorry, my friend.
No worries. Bobby's is an amazing runner. They absolutely deserve that one, and
Yeah.
hopefully they'll deserve a second one. I'm rooting for them when they come up against Zuzek, which little birdie's told me that might be happening somewhat soon.
Yeah, I mean, like, drawing the hype for the 8th versus 9th seed, well, in that second round, that's going to be Zuzek versus Bobby's, which is the 4th versus the 5th seed. So another just sort of, like, borderline, like, seed matchup. It's just like, oh, man, those could be some of the most fun races. And, man, honestly, you know what, Turtle? Like, this is, like, the most stressful thing, too, as well, because in a lot of, like, in most tournaments, I usually just end up like seeding in the middle in those situations. So I always like find myself like all the all skills tournaments, all of the rando tourneys, I just like always have to battle my way to keep going.
Yeah, I know. I tend to end up near the bottom, but that just means I have to try all the harder to try and get some of those upsets, which is also really fun from my end. And again, looking back at our first round of the brackets, we did have that upset that I mentioned earlier with Dolori beating out Mava. And then lastly, to finish off talking about our bracket, we had 2Kill, who took their first round loss against one of our runners today, Lix. That was a pretty amazing match. Lix in particular was jumping back and forth around their PB times quite a bit. Didn't manage to get a PB in the end, but they're in good form for this race today against the slightly higher ranked Seaal.
Yeah, and you know, like, very exciting sort of development for Lix in particular, talking about PBs. They actually were able to clock out an official PB today with getting an over 1 minute personal best, which is a lot with a 106.46. So they're in form, right? So like we could actually end up seeing a very close race. But that being said, we just have a really awesome, amazing production video here that we're going to show you. And so take it away, 2Kill, with the intro video. Absolutely beautiful. Major shout outs to Brian for that incredible intro video. Love you, bud. But that being said, we are so excited, Turtle. We are going to be showcasing off an incredible match here in the MQO Tournament 2023, featuring off Seaal, who's going to be on the left with Lix on the right with the respective timers directly down below. And once again, my screen name is Covert Muffin, also known as Hidden Eclair. And I am joined here by Turtle. Turtle, man, this is going to be a great one, right?
Yeah, I know. Let's quickly before we start. These again are our seed 6 Lix and seed 3 Seaal. Both have tournament PBs and qualifier averages in the low to mid 1 hour and like 5-ish minute range. So again, could very well come out either way. They did have one prior match in qualifiers, and that was Seaal taking the victory with 103 versus Lix having, I think it was their worst run of the qualifiers at a 112. But again, they've gotten many better times since, including the PB earlier today. So, yeah.
Yeah, you know, I think one of my favorite things about Ori, especially, is that anything can happen, right? Like these games are incredibly difficult, like both the first Ori and the second Ori, as we're going to showcase to you here today. And so, like, these runners are within just like a couple, if not a few minutes between each other, with sort of like their average times that they were benchmarking for quals. And that like can really spell something massive, right? Like taking a death in a boss fight, having to redo like the escape sequence in Storytime Temple, right? Like there's just like so many different things that can just go horrifically wrong in order to make these races like incredibly close. But both of these runners are very, very high end in terms of skill cap. They're very well played, right? Lix, I mean, we can't just talk enough about Lix and like what he's done with the community and for the community. But Seaal also just at the prime of their game with like the low 102, 103 times. And that being said, we are underway. So Seaal is going to be in the top left, Lix on the right with their respective timers down below. GLHF, my friends.
Yep. And immediately we should talk about the timers that you'll see on the screen are desynced. That is because Ori and the Will of the Wisps is timed using loadless time. So you'll see that the timers will pause when our runners are quitting to menu. And since they can have slightly different load times, that means that their timers can get a little bit desynced. We will be doing our absolute best to keep track of everything that's going on. But for right now, their timers are pretty close as they're getting down to grabbing their first weapon, maybe not a permanent one, but torch.
Yeah, I wish we had like more time with the torch, Turtle, because there's just so much fascinating tech, right? So we're going to see our runners use those up attacks for two reasons. One is it's going to allow us to be able to retain ourselves within the air without like falling down or just falling down like ever so slightly. But also, it's going to be the fastest rate of attack. So on the left, Seaal is going to be the first one to go for a big sequence break. Oh yeah, they bonked their head there, but Lix on the right gets their first try. And so, oh no, Lix! Lix was just a little bit too low, so they are going to quit out to menu. This is smart because, once again, loadless times. But on the left, Seaal nails the second sequence break, grabbing that keystone with an incredibly precise jump. Very well done from Seaal, just playing very consistently. But oh, Lix on the right is going to be... Oh, it's just barely high enough. Okay. Woo, but it's not over yet for Lix.
Yeah, Seaal made it look super easy, but this keystone jump right here, ooh, yeah, it's ridiculously tight. There's just a tiny bit of that wall that peeks out that you actually can wall jump on. And so Lix is trying to get up to, using a torch hover to very smartly preserve some of that mid-air momentum so they can hit that small portion of the wall. But yeah, this trick is not easy. So Seaal nailing it first try is really, really great. And that'll allow him to move on almost at the Howl fight already, as Lix keeps attempting this difficult trick. They're gonna looks like they take a reset. That reset will do it. Getting their bearings on positioning will get them that keystone that they need to continue.
Yeah, it's really smart because it doesn't appear so, but like when you actually jump off of a wall, it is very important, right? Because if you end up like pressing the jump button earlier, then you are like further to the right of the wall because you're jumping off an invisible little bit of air. And so Lix, what he was trying to do was just like slow down, be able to get onto the wall itself, so that he knew exactly the amount of distance that he actually had ended up recovering. But I love that, like that decision from Lix, right? Just getting back on the platform, resetting up. But on the left, we're going to see Seaal into the fight. Nice pattern here, beautiful positioning, and they get a very fast fight. And so we're going to see how Lix is going to be able to sort of match that up if they are going to be able to also get a very fast and clean fight, as we see Lix despawning the torch, as we saw Seaal do a little bit earlier, because otherwise that would have ended up causing a soft lock, which is very funny.
We do have our information. There is a 45-second difference at the Keystone. So Lix lost about that much time since they both messed up his torch hover on their first try. That was pretty much all from that Keystone jump, just being a really difficult trick. Lix does manage to get it, though, after not too long, and will, of course, be moving into the hell fight. Seaal, however, already has Sword on their end. We actually get to keep this upgrade, and for now, we'll mostly just be using it to kill some slimes and get some extra EXP, although not these slimes. Seaal might go for some other ones later. But later on, it'll be used for more interesting things besides punching slimes and punching walls.
Yeah, so Seaal taking the top route here to get out. I like that decision. It's there's a little bit of a faster way, but it's just barely faster in order to get out of that section. But like that's very important in like a race setting in a tournament, especially because this is going to be a single elimination round for the bracket phase itself. So being able to like pull out specific strats and getting them consistently is going to be almost more important, right? And so like Seaal knows they have the advantage here, right? Their personal best is faster. Their overall tournament average time is going to be faster. And so all they have to do is be able to like try and stay ahead of Lix by a certain comfortable margin. And then when they get into those more like critical sort of like strategy zones where they do have to end up like executing, they could just give themselves the necessary padding to be able to stay ahead. But here's Seaal is going to be picking up double jump, but Lix on the right nailed that first try. That was actually the faster method that I was alluding to a little bit earlier. So Lix knows that he has to just like try and take every single advantage that he can over an opponent as good as Seaal. But on the left, beautiful double jump movement, nailing those sword hovers. Those are incredibly precise, especially for that trick in general. And oh yeah, just a little bit too low on that, but just beautiful movement. And we are going to see a lot more of that, especially as we come up to an upcoming massive sequence break, which is going to be Keystone Door Skip.
Earner's having a little bit of high five here, also both having a little bit of trouble with these lizard enemies, as they're really the only difficult things in this area. Slimes are completely free if you know what you're doing, which both of our runners do, but the lizard giving them a bit of trouble, but both of them will be making their way, as Seaal is making their way to another enemy who's going to be very important to us. That Squonky right there jumping around on his screen, we're going to use that to do a really difficult trick. And Seaal did grab a shard to make this a little bit easier. He'll be able to use Sticky to stick to the walls and get timing a little bit better. But in order to do this really precise, oh my gosh,
no, not quite.
Seaal's going for the really hard version of it, but we have to use that Squonky's jump to regain some of our height in midair by pogoing off of it. And
beautiful.
Oh my god, that was incredible from Seaal, doing one of the harder versions of that trick and just destroying it.
Yeah, not just a harder version, but that is like honestly probably the most difficult sequence break in the entire run that we're going to see. So we're going to see how Lix is going to be able to adapt to this. Are they going to be able to match Seaal pace for pace? Either nailing it first or second try is going to be really massive for Lix. So on the right, let's see how Lix does. Okay, yeah, he's taking a little bit of a slower setup, but doesn't have Sticky that we saw from Seaal. Doing the sword slash just to retain, and oh, he just barely missed that turtle. That was so incredibly close, but that's okay because he's going to reset up. Oh no, just barely a little. Oh, okay. Squonky is in a good position, so here we go for the second attempt from Lix. And they get the sword hover, but just barely not high enough, Turtle. Man, this trick is so difficult.
Yeah, there's a tiny little wall that's like barely a few pixels tall that you have to land on in order to regain your double jump. And again, Lix doesn't have Sticky, so they have to nail that wall manually. Wow. And oh, right there, Lix does manage to get it with some great double jump sword movement there to make it through, and will be able to continue on with their run as well.
Yeah, like, I mean, I know we like to celebrate the person who's in the lead in like race settings, but that was impressive to me, like as a speedrunner myself. And I've done a lot of really difficult things in speedrunning, but man, just seeing both of these runners crush that skip is just so cool to see. On the left, though, we're going to be seeing Seaal. They are still just grabbing Spearlight. This is going to be in order to buy and upgrade a little bit later, but they are going to be picking up another shard, Resilience, which is going to give them some damage reduction, but Seaal incredibly low in health, but nice adaptation there to be able to just maintain their height in order to be able to go up. But on the left, we're actually going to see Seaal go for another sequence break here, and this is actually going to skip a small little cutscene. So here, Seaal jumping up, they're going to be jumping up in a very specific cadence. Yep, jumping off the leaves there. That is very particular. But yeah, they just get a bad jump, so they are going to reset there on that wall. Nice up slash, and they are going to be unequipping a badge and then continuing through. Nicely done. Just a little bit of hassle, but I mean, this is so impressive to me so far, Turtle, about Seaal, is that whenever they make just sort of a minor sort of like movement error, they're just so quick to just recognize that they don't have the optimal condition, and then they just end up resetting, refocusing themselves, and then just not losing a bunch of time, right? Because like, especially in a race setting, in speed running, it's almost more importantly not to focus on saving time, but rather of mitigating time loss. And so, like, just Seaal has been doing such a great job, and just shows that they are truly an expert at this game.
Yeah, Seaal is actually matching his PB pace right now, which is
Wow.
insane. And again, in a race setting where nerves
Wow.
can be even higher. So just incredible performance. Lick's also doing very well, managing to get this cutscene skip first try for themselves. And both of our runners do now have the sentry ability. Picked up enough spirit light to grab it, and that lets them fly into the air, which will be one of the key movement abilities for pretty much the entire rest of the run, whether they're doing it from the ground, which is a easier version of the trick, or hopefully we'll get to see some great aerial sentries, which are a really, really tight timing window to get those.
Yeah, and both of those are frame perfect timing windows. It doesn't matter if you're on the ground or the air, but luckily when we're on the ground, it's just going to be the same frame, which is a much easier timing press, especially because we can bind all of those keys together. But in the air, it is an exactly 3 frame separation between various inputs. So doing an up slash and then sentry is going to be sort of those bindings that we need. So both of our runners doing a great job. We are going to come through. We're going to see what they're going to end up doing after they grab bow, after they end up entering this new area. But I imagine that both of these runners at their caliber are going to be doing the poison swim. So we will see how that goes.
Oh yeah, this trick, as well as door skip, are definitely the gatekeepers of the early game.
Yeah.
This trick in particular, you do not get to see where you're going. Our runners just have to memorize the route that they're going to take. So keep your eyes out on Seaal screen as they are about to start this trick. We'll be getting over to this platform, doing a jump with regen at the same frame. Oh, they decided that one wasn't good. Ooh, they do take a death. There's luckily a checkpoint right before starting this trick, so they will be able to get to it again. See them. Oop. Missing their regen jumps just a little bit to get that on the same frame, both regen and jump. That'll let them take some extra iframes into the water. We'll either swim down, get this first save point, so they're halfway through the down swim, and take a death right here, but they should just be able to barely make it through.
Beautiful.
Great job from Seaal.
Yeah, we're going to see how Lix does. This is definitely a potential time save versus them and their opponent. If they are able to close out that skip with a little bit more fluidity, a little bit more consistency than what we saw out of Seaal, that is definitely a potential time save. So on the right, Lix is going to be taking intentional damage because we're going to end up healing and then taking damage from the spikes in order to delay that poison water damage. Lix, yeah, nailed that first checkpoint a lot faster than their opponent. Let's see if they get the second portion. Beautiful, flawless skip from Lix. That was an absolutely incredible sequence break, and that is absolutely time save versus their opponent.
Yeah, Lix was 43 seconds behind Bo, but has absolutely made up some of that with that perfect downswim right there. They will have to do an upswim as well. Lix also is doing a little bit of adjustment to the standard run right here. They go over to the trial.
Yeah, and so this was back in my day when I speedran this game, doing this trial was actually the quote-unquote optimal way to be able to get a massive amount of spirit light. We're going to get about 1,000 spirit light from doing that trial itself. And so we're going to see how Seaal is also going to adapt with their spirit light routing, and we're going to see what Lix is going to do with this massive amount of spirit light. But yeah, it sounds like that they are going to be actually upgrading Reckless, which is going to be a shard that is going to allow us to get a bunch of additional damage. I believe it's 35% additional damage at its max upgrade. But also, this causes Ori to take some additional damage. But in this category, right, we haven't really talked about MQO as a category itself. And so it is probably the most popular mid-range category that we have for Will-o'-the-Wisps, which is going to feature off all of the boss fights in general, as well as escape sequences. And so it's going to pretty much just showcase off a lot of really exciting content within the game.
Yeah, so therefore, Lix will be losing a little bit of time to doing this, but by getting all that extra Spirit Light, they can have much faster bosses, which, again, we're doing all of them, every single one. So that can help speed up their late game quite a bit.
Yeah, and so really interesting sort of turn of sequence here for our runners is that at Dash Tree, there's only a 27-second difference. And Seaal didn't actually activate the trial, right, for Dash, right, before the tree, but Lix did. So Lix closing that timing differential by half, as well as doing some additional more content. So, man, this race is just so incredibly close so far. And we are coming very, very quickly into the latter portions of the early game sequence. But Seaal, beautiful mid-air sentry, that one-frame timing sequence, and beautiful wave dash there by using regen after dashing and turning away from a wall. That is an incredibly precise trick and very, very nice little zoomy. And we're going to see those all over the place, Turtle.
Yeah, speaking of precise tricks, Seaal does attempt another one here, where you have to be standing on an exact pixel when you fire your bow to skip this tree cutscene. They won't get it, but that's completely fine. The cutscene isn't too bad, and they do still have quite a bit of an advantage, especially with Lix taking that extra trial. The only difference is then that Lix will have a faster endgame, so Seaal definitely needs to get as much of an advantage as possible in this point. Meanwhile, on Lix's side, we didn't point this out from Seaal, but you have to go back up through the water. This part is almost certainly harder than going down. And Lix does miss the checkpoint the first time. You have to get that same checkpoint in the midway. Lix will get it the second time. Then take a little bit of a damage boost to get yourself some extra iframes. And yeah, Lix will, once again with a really, really good swim. And for extra swag, a mid-air sentry jump to just get up to the lever that much faster.
Yeah, why not, right? Why not do the way a million times more difficult, like frame perfect timing window on that trick to just go just a tiny bit faster, like, and this is like totally nominative of Lix, right? Like a top speedrunner in the Will-O-the-Wisp community, especially in other categories, just like really showing that they are comfortable with the tech, they're comfortable with the movement abilities in this game. So very nice stuff from both of our runners. We're going to see how they are going to go after they are going to be heading towards Glades as well as Wellspring, which are going to have some nice technical movements. But honestly, I find like Wellspring like a pretty calming and like relaxing area relative to like some of the early game nodes, right? Like you were saying, Turtle, earlier on, right? It's like the Keystone Door skip as well as another one, and like the Poison Swim are kind of like the like early game run Ripperino things to nail. And so having those behind both of our runners must be a sigh of relief for them.
Yeah, absolutely. There are definitely still some difficult tricks and some cool stuff.
Yeah.
Seaal doesn't actually go for the bow launch, but there are a couple of like really interesting, really technical things that you can do in Wellspring, but there's just not as much run ending. But there's definitely still time to be saved and lost. Like, again, with Seaal right there, very technically skipping a little bit of dialogue by jumping the frame after landing. It almost looked like he missed it, but no, he did manage to get it. We'll be skipping a cutscene and talking to Wylan here for those upgrades. Seaal has 700 Spirit Light here, so we'll only be getting... What?
What's that? They're moving around with the shop window open. I don't think I've ever seen that before. That is an incredible piece of tech right there from Seaal. That was interesting. So while they were shopping, they were actually moving around with the shop screen open. Yeah, shop anywhere. that was incredible. That was very cool. I've never seen that before.
I didn't know they invented Amazon in Nywin. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, fortunately, we don't have to pay Jeff Bezos for that. But on the left, Seaal is going to be going for a sentry jump. Doesn't quite get the height that they want in order to get over a cutscene trigger. Then dashing at a specific time, nicely done. They are able to get over, and so they are going to be the first to make it over to this area as Lix. Now, after grabbing the bash tree, they are coming over for this energy cell. Nicely done. And they are going to set up for a tiny little wave dash. Just Lix with all these tiny little micro optimizations just all over the place. Just very cool movement to see. But Seaal on the left, nailing Wellspring entry so far there, Turtle.
Yeah, absolutely. There were a couple of really risky points there in Seal's this little under section where they did take one death, almost took another as they were trying to slash that little pustule. They did manage to sentry jump on their last hit. Very, very well done in order to get up to the higher section. they will be now watching a little bit of a cutscene as Lix does their movement into
Wow.
the shopping section for them as well. And maybe they did equip bow. We watch Lix here in a sec. Hopefully we'll be able to get to see a little bit of a bow launch. Just make sure you keep an eye on Lix after they let go of the pole. We'll see if they do go for that trick.
Oh, so
Ooh.
close. Yeah, just trying to maintain that momentum using the bow. There it is. They get it second try. So very nicely done from Lix. They're going to come up to the Glades entry dialogue slash small cutscene skip by dashing and jumping off of the ground immediately. Then doing a big sentry jump there in order to get some additional Spirit Light, I believe. Yeah, they're coming over for the Spirit Light pickup. So very cool difference in routing between our two runners, as the differential is going to be just over a minute at that Bash Tree segment itself. But honestly, we have a lot of Ori left, so anything can still happen within this race. So there, Lix on the left is going to be purchasing bow, and the bow upgrade, excuse me, and then fully upgrading Reckless. Yeah, 35% damage increase. Equipping Overcharge, which is a shard that we ended up getting a little bit later, earlier on within the run, excuse me, which is going to end up causing us to have all energy costs. So Sentry now only costs half an energy instead of a full energy, which is going to be really amazing, especially because it's going to be a way that we're going to build a lot of verticality at multiple times. And Lix just nailing these mid-air sentries. Those are incredibly, incredibly precise. Just very, very fascinating. But on the left, Seaal is going to be coming up within Wellspring to go for the arena fight.
Yeah, this is why we purchase so many shards, and it's so we can use bow just like this and obliterate all combat in the game. So this being the first combat arena, it's not too difficult, and you'll see Seaal make an absolute joke of it, knowing where every enemy spawned, just using that shotgun of a bow to destroy enemies as fast as possible. Bow combat is great, and both of our runners will be using it throughout the run. However, Lix, with that extra Reckless, will be doing a little bit more damage. So that time loss from doing the trial and grabbing the extra Spirit Light, now is when they will be starting to make that up with every single fight that they go through.
Wow, and Lex just continuing to do these like tiny bits of optimal movement that he doesn't need to do, but he just knows is a little bit faster. And this is just so nominative of Lix as a speedrunner in general, right? We were mentioning earlier that he is like a top-end speedrunner, especially in other categories within the game. So just seeing him bust out all these incredibly precise pieces of tech in order to save those like frames is just so great to see. But meanwhile, Seaal, just consistency is the king, right? Is going to allow them to continue to work through Wellspring and honestly maintain their lead, right? Like coming into mid-game, especially for those boss fights itself, are going to be sort of the spooky portions of the run, as well as like a couple different areas movement wise. And so if Seaal is just able to sort of like maintain that lead, maintain that spacing over their opponent, then they are going to be able to have that nice additional extra padding just in case they make a mistake, right? Just in case they lose like 30 seconds in like a spot, 20 seconds in a spot, which is very easy to do in this game called Ori and the Will-O-Wisps.
Yeah, and Seaal does manage to quickly clutch out some extra sentry jumps to manage to get their way up to this top floor. They will be purchasing fast travel, the last major purchase in the run, and they will be then heading straight on in to the escape.
Wow.
They go for a cutscene skip here, get the slightly slower version of it, and oh boy, yeah, they're doing this the risky way. They can wave dash off of several of the collapsing obstacles that are supposed to kill you. Of things that are supposed to kill you. That wheel can also be skipped, which is also supposed to kill you. So Seaal going for incredibly risky strats. However, like we see with that first wave dash, you can speed this auto-scroller, maybe not entirely auto-scroller, but this escape up by a lot by doing some really intense strats. Seal's not going to go for this extra wave dash here. Again, super duper risky. But with that done, there's a pretty straightforward line as long as they don't mess up any of these little bashes and grapples to get through the rest of the Wellspring escape. Just one big wheel left for them, or they are out of what I would consider the early game.
Yeah, indeed. And so, they do end up going for that final bash there. You actually don't end up needing to do that. So every single time you bash, you actually lose, like, what is it, like 0.2 of a second or something like that? I don't actually know if that's the same timing for Will-O-Wisps. Because the game ends up pausing, but just going for that extra bash is good. I think that was the correct decision on Seal's end, because that actually does end up just making the escape sequence much easier and much safer in general. But Lex on the right, able to just absolutely decimate that arena with all of the additional damage from Reckless as well as those bow shards that we saw both of our runners end up picking up earlier on. But major shouts to Seaal. They are going to be the first one to make it to the So Soggy. And so, like, passing this point, as Turtle mentioned, this is kind of going to be the end of the early game, right? Early game, like 20 minutes, right? I've speedrun games that are 20 minutes, Turtle. It's like so funny to just sort of like call that the early game as we still have like 2/3 of the speedrun to end up closing out. And so good stuff from both of our runners. Lick's beautiful wave dash there in order to be able to make it over into this grapple region itself. And they are going to equip Overcharge to have the energy costs. And nice sentry jumps there, able to get actually, honestly, like pretty tight sequence break. And oh, wow, beautiful movement from Lick's, ending up deciding to go for a sentry jump instead of grappling onto the blue moss itself. That is a very cool sentry jump. I am absolutely going to be taking that and putting it into my arsenal of tech that I'll use in speedruns.
Yeah, since sentry jumps can be performed anywhere as long as you have the energy and the timing to hit them, top tier runners like these two will be using them really greatly. Like Seaal hopefully will be getting one in midair. Okay, they missed the fastest version, but they are now up and into Luma pools, which despite the name main quest order, we are going into Luma pools before coup. However, this is actually correct for main quest order. The only trigger for quests is actually the Kolak fight at the end. So what our runners can do is get down here, grab Water Dash, which will make a section coming up a little bit faster, and then they can get the teleporter. So they can leave the area and then come back later when it's actually time to do the quests in order.
Okay, we saw Lix try and go for the Wellspring Escape sequence break that was developed by Sikinar. It ended up missing it and tried to go for the method that I discovered, but Lix is able to get it second try, and so they are going to enter the escape sequence as we saw from Seaal earlier. And just a little bit of an explanation for MQO. So main quest order, you may be wondering, what does that mean? So like in a speedrun category, we end up adding constraints in order to make the speedrun a little bit more interesting. And so MQO serves two purposes. One is that it adds a nice mid-range category that is going to feature off a little bit more combat as we see Seaal getting a little bit of bad RNG. So we may just see them quit to menu and reload a couple times to just try and get that door open. No idea why that occurs. Yeah, there we go. The door is open. So pretty good RNG, honestly, for Seaal. But yeah, so MQO. So the first purpose, cool mid-range category for boss fights and stuff like that. The second reason is in order to sort of delay the timing for when we actually end up being allowed to go and get Launch, which is going to be the final skill in the game, because Launch is very overpowered within this game. So the way that we ended up developing that as a speedrun community is that we ended up saying, you must activate these flags for story quests in a very, very specific order. And so coming over in Luma pools, this may seem like a sequence break, as Turtle was saying, but it actually isn't, because we are going to be stopping short of a flag, which is going to be on the Quallock boss fight itself. So basically, we just get the waypoint, we get Water Dash, we get the waypoint right before the boss, and then we're going to teleport over and head to the right side of the map in order to go through Silent Woods.
Yep. And Lix will do the same route, presumably. You can do this as the intended game order, going to coup first. But again, top level runners like these two will really want Water Dash to speed up that one section behind Quolok where you have to go through the water. And having Water Dash makes it faster. Lix, yep, will be following about 1:52 behind at the end of Wellspring Escape. So that's the amount of time that Lix has to make up with their extra damage to the bosses that are now going to be coming up. Well, maybe in a little bit, because first, after Seaal gets to this teleporter, we have one boss, which will be Hornbug, and then some coup sections after that. But Hornbug, yeah, that's a boss.
Yeah, so this was actually a boss we sequence broke earlier on, and so we were actually going to see from Seaal first. They are going to, I believe, opt to actually just keep the mosquito alive here, which is an interesting thing. I wonder if that's just like a choice or if that was a slight mistake. But yeah, it looks like it was a choice because they are just going to this fight incredibly confidently. I actually really like that a lot from Seaal. But there, yeah, we're just showing off like how incredibly ridiculous Bow is as a DPS source on this boss fight itself. And then just like all those shard upgrades, as Turtle was alluding to earlier, is just going to allow us to really increase our damage output by a lot. So really just clean fight from Seaal, very good RNG, and they really adapted to sort of the patterns that the boss was giving them. Very, very nicely done. Lix, meanwhile, on the right, is going to be heading through Luma pools. We are going to see how they are going to be able to sort of manage the RNG of the arena fight.
Yeah, so this there's a door that's supposed to trap you inside of an arena fight. For whatever reason, it just doesn't spawn sometimes. And so, since the fight is somewhat slow, you just don't want to do it. But that means you have to get the door open. And there's just a random chance of it being closed or open on patch 2, which both of our runners are running on. So they will have to reload repeatedly in order to get that door open. Seaal, I believe, only needed one reload for their side. So we'll see in just a sec if Lix can get it first try or if they'll need to reload a couple times. Again, it is entirely random whether this door decides to be nice to our runners or not. And here we go. There's the save point right before.
Okay, yeah, door closed. So they're going to quit to menu in order to reload, right? Because once again, we are not timing in real-time attack here for the race itself. In order to increase comparability, we actually end up using a load remover. So this is going to be time without loads, or also known as loadless, for our runners. And Lix, yeah, just not getting the door that they want. So it is a little bit quicker each time to just quit to menu and retry the door, right? We actually saw a race during the qualifiers where one of the runners featured actually ended up just like completely just doing the arena. They were just like, they did it for like 8 attempts or something like that, and the door was still closed, and they're like, you know what, screw it, I'm just gonna do the arena. So it is like honestly the most unfortunate form of RNG within the run, but both of our runners were able to get through there without too much pain. But Seaal on the left has just been nailing all of these incredible sequence breaks. Beautiful sentry jump there to be able to get a massive amount of height by like standing on that slope and utilizing that to be able to boost them a bit higher. So just really nice tech there from Seaal as they are going to be progressing up, and we are going to see how they do on coup skip as Lex is going to be collecting their water dash momentarily.
Yeah, it should be noted, what Seal's doing here is technically a sequence break. They absolutely nailed the first portion of it. But despite the fact that we can get through this area without coup, this is main quest order, and so we do need coup in order to complete the quest properly. So Seaal, getting through the area a little bit quickly using some sentry jumps, manages to trigger a flag, goes back here, dies to get coup to just instantly teleport to him, and then will hit a cutscene trigger, exit, and is now on coup, but doesn't need to do some of the slow loop in this area. And that is a little bit of a time save. It's really, really difficult to get, but Seaal does absolutely nail it and will be heading on through this coup section as Lix is about to finish their side of Luma Pools, and will also be doing their Hornbug, which again, they can do a little bit faster due to that extra Reckless shard that they have.
Yeah, honestly, all in all, just very clean Silent Woods turtle, right? For Seaal.
Mm-hmm.
Just absolutely textbook execution in like all these like sequence breaks and skips and stuff like that. As we see a Lix on the right is going to be going into their Hornbug fight. I mean, we were mentioning like in early game, there's like really those two skips, right? The clean water, skip for the Grove in order to get down to Dash Tree, right? Doing that poison water swim and like with blind movement and stuff is like very scary, as well as the key door skip that we saw after double jump, and like those are incredibly scary. Silent Woods just has like a million different like scary portions, and it's all based on execution and movement, right? And Seaal just knocked it out of the park. Just beautiful Silent Woods from Seaal as they are coming through this coup section with just like a nice, like honestly, breath of relief, right? So like just getting through Silent Woods, getting to the point where you get coup is just like very nice, because the coup sections themselves, there are a few pretty precise movement-based portions, but they are not nearly as difficult as the first half of the area.
Yeah, once you get past coup skip, all the tricks remaining are relatively easy, like one that we're going to see Seaal doing right here. It's you just our runners know exactly where to jump, double jump, and glide in order to get that, and Seaal does manage to get right on through, skips a little bit of a mini cutscene. There's a slightly difficult one here that hopefully Seaal will be able to get. If you're fast enough, you just skip a cutscene for free. Seaal looks very, very good. Oh, does get scared.
All right, so there's Shriek. They're going to be saying peekaboo, and then we're going to be able to go on our way, and then we're going to lay down coup for a little bit of a nap. They're going to take a nap, Twitch chat, right? This is not sad. You can't convince me that this is sad. They're just taking a nap.
Avert your eyes to Lix's screen if you don't want to see. Lix is attempting the cutscene skip at the start of Silent Woods. Yeah, right there. I nailed it. Grabs the Golak ore, in order to get up to this branch, launches themselves across. Again, that's a slightly difficult trick that they did manage to nail, and they're now going to follow the same path, wave dashing really, really quickly through this early area of Silent Woods in order to get the keystones that they'll need to make it to try Q-skip for themselves in just a bit. Where's that bubble? That bubble needs to spawn. And no, it doesn't. Lynx just aerial sentries to keep themselves in the air long enough to make it past that keystone, that bubble that wasn't spawning for them. Incredible knowledge of aerial sentry jumps to just pull those off.
I mean, I've said this like 3 times so far, but the word nominative, right? Like not nominative, right? Is just you can't define Lex any other way. They're just an incredibly expert speedrunner, and they're just busting out these difficult tricks, right? Watch here on the right. First try, let's go, Lex. Man, that is so incredibly impressive to me. Nailing Q-skip with that beautiful precision, and just like all of the sword tech, all of the movement, all of these wave dashes that were actually like different. Like there was just like a tiny little slip up, but that was the first of Silent Woods, and that's a very minor one to have a slip up. So just incredible stuff. Just we get to watch both of these runners, right? If I just watched one of these runners speedrun this game, I would have be incredibly content, incredibly happy. But we have to watch both of these runners at the same time. Like, we're spoiled for options here. This is so awesome.
Yeah, it's absolutely great. Seaal has already made their way into Moldwood. We'll be heading through this area. Overshoots a little, but this area has a lot of spooky darkness, which likes to kill, except we can kind of just avert that with bow. Bow provides light for our runners to use to just temporarily set back the darkness. We won't be hitting any of the fireflies, and we won't be getting blaze. However, pulling out bow is a little bit slow and costs us one of our 3 slots, which we could be using for something like regen. So it's optimal to use bow as little as possible in this area. And so we're hopefully going to see Seaal using some regen dashes. Oh, okay, takes out bow very quickly there just to make sure they don't die. That's a smart play. As they keep going through darkness, pulls out bow once here. We'll be using another one. And with that, that's a free source of light on this jump pad. And they are already and about to start their fight against the first major boss of the mid-game, Mora.
Yeah, you know, I have to just really give Seaal another major shout out here. They are absolutely in it to win it. They want the win here in this tournament race, right? They are going for all of these incredibly precise, incredibly advanced pieces of tech, but if they miss it once, if they miss it twice, they're not going to keep retrying it in order to potentially continue to fail at the tech. They just say, okay, I'm going to take some slightly slower movement. I tried it once, but didn't quite get optimal, so I'm just going to keep moving forward. And this is just an amazing strat, right? Because the name of the game is consistency within speedrunning, especially in a no reset tournament fashion. But here, on the left, Seaal is going to be entering phase 1 of Mora.
Mora, as the first boss our runners are fighting, is going to be the hardest boss. When we go over to Kolak later, we'll have a little bit more health from beating Mora. But, you don't have that health until you beat her. So for now, Lix is sitting on 5 health and only 6 energy in order to take down this giant spider 3 phases. Looks to be running a little low on energy. They're out, but they make it to the end of that first phase, taking an intentional death there will refill their energy a little bit, and they are on to the escape portion, part 2 of Mora's fight already. They'll be getting into phase 3, hopefully grabbing some extra energy in that fight. And then that might be all they have left in terms of energy before they just burst the spider into oblivion with all of the extra reckless and quick shot and everything that we have upgraded to this point.
Yeah, good game knowledge from Seaal as well with that intentional death. They actually ended up getting a spider spawn for the minions, but Seaal going down to 1 health here. They have to be so incredibly careful. If they take a death, they have to do this phase completely over. Oh, scary pattern there, but beautiful sword movement there in order to retain themselves within air for just a little bit. And so here's going to be the final phase. Let's see if they get it. No! Take a death. So Seaal is going to have to retry this 3rd phase over. Meanwhile, on the right, we see Lix just continuing through the air. We don't see Lix. We know Lix is going to be continuing through as they just put Q down for nap time. And Seaal just looking a lot more comfy here, has full health pool with full energy. Here we go for this. The bow shots, yeah, they get it. Just a sliver of health left from Mora. They take the intentional damage in order to continue firing, and they are able to take down the first boss in the run itself, as they are going to be taking the Wellspring Waypoint in order to head over to Bowers Reach in order to get another Wisp, because every single time we actually end up collecting Wisp, as Turtle mentioned, we are going to get an extra full health. We're going to get an extra full energy. So just having this additional padding for the spookier portions in the later portions of this mid game is going to just give us a nice little bit of comfy safety. But man, just both of our runners putting on an amazing clinic as we see Lix now just continuing to head over to the left.
Yeah, Lix is going through the same path of Mora, then Bauer, then Kolak as Seaal. And so as of right now, they are pretty much exactly one Mord behind Seaal. There's a little bit of difference due to the loadless timer, but that is the time that they need to make up. And again, they can do it. They have a lot more damage in these boss fights thanks to their upgraded Reckless. They will also be taking more damage in boss fights thanks to the upgraded Reckless. So it's a risk-reward strategy for them. But we'll see them hopefully do it heading through at the end of Moldwood. Meanwhile, Seaal starting up Bowers Reach, having the cute little bear sneeze and out of the way, will let them get into this area. And just like Moldwood, we actually don't need the primary item of this area either, because Sentry conveniently happens to have some of the same properties as Grenade. Seaal will be showing that off in just a sec. Great Sentry regen dash right there to launch himself up. But we do need to destroy this ice here in order to progress. So Seaal definitely weaves, bashes off the Squonky to stay alive, and when Sentry explodes, it creates a little bit of fire that counts as grenade and will let him pass through this area without picking up the main objective. Does take a small death there, but there's a save point right behind. Seaal will grab a little bit of extra energy and will now be continuing on through the rest of Bowers Reach, as Lix is, I'd say, probably like 3/4 of the way through Moldwood already, making their way up to just straight up from here is where Mora is for them.
Yeah, pretty good Moldwood from, as I say that, Lix actually ends up taking that. Sorry, Lix. Honestly, good Moldwood from Lix through and through, and they are going to be coming up to the Mora fight itself. Seaal, meanwhile, is just having a nice, relaxing Bowers. Bowers, in all honesty, is probably one of the comfiest areas in the speedrun itself. There's not really too much that is going to be terribly difficult for our runners to navigate. This arena, honestly, is going to be probably one of the harder things overall. And it's just because there's just specific timings that you want to hit with each of these maneuvers. But Seaal just knocking it out of the park. And honestly, probably the hardest sequence break within the entire bit of Bowers is going to be right before the escape sequence itself. So after Seaal does this sort of upwards gliding portion to get towards the escape itself, we're going to see a pretty big sentry jump. But meanwhile, Lix on the right, starting their Mora fight.
Yeah, Bauer is the only giant animal we encounter in this game that doesn't immediately try to kill us. So while Lix has to deal with the giant spider, Seaal just has to run away from, Shriek shows up at the end of this area. Hopefully Seaal will be skipping the cutscene there with that, so we might not even be seeing Shriek at all. While Lix is definitely seeing a lot of Mora, does manage to get through the first phase really quickly. Is out of energy though, doesn't take the intentional death to refill. They just have a tiny sliver left, but they will be able to refill using a small crystal at the beginning of the next phase.
Yeah, and as we saw from Seaal, like, being able to heal up to full before this phase started is important. Yeah, there we go. We saw Lix just break the energy crystal and spend that full energy in order to heal up. So here we go. Third phase for Lix. We saw Seaal take a pretty massive death in the later portion of the third phase. Oh, not quite the pattern that Lix was hoping for. They tried to hug the wall to stop Mora from going to the other side of the screen. And here, just, scary pattern for Lix, but they're able to avoid the damage so far. And so coming into this portion as Seaal is also in Bauer Reach escape on the left, but Lix on the right. The story is here. Nice dodge there. They are on a sliver health. They have to avoid that damage. Beautiful dodge there, but it's not over. Come on, Lix is out of energy, so they cannot avoid the darkness. Come on, Lix breaks the energy crystal. Beautiful. Oh man, that backup from Lix, and they're able to get the fight first try, Turtle. What a beautiful backup from Lix. Just incredible fight in that third phase. I cannot stress how amazing that was from them.
Yeah, what a heart attack that ending was. I cannot believe Lix managed to pull that off Running out of energy means you can't use bow and thus die to the darkness, but Lix just barely managing to get enough light from those hanging fireflies in order to finish off the fight. Oh my god, that was incredible from them to be able to get that fight, especially with how much pressure they must be under at this point in the middle of a race. But the boss fight rush is not over yet, as Seaal is about to start Kolak. Luckily, again, by this point, they have some extra health and energy from finishing off Mora and Bowers, but Kolak definitely isn't a pushover either. He starts with his escape section, and Seaal will be attempting to get through here as fast as possible as... yeah, okay. Does take a little bit of a water dip there and hits one of Kolak's big kill planes. But in patch 2, Kolak rubber bands. So the faster you can get through this portion, the faster the next phase of the fight will start. So Seaal wants to be absolutely on top of his game. Oh my gosh. Okay, a few missteps here. Seaal takes a little bit of a safer route over to the top, but does manage to make it to the fight. He will be ready to start the main Kolak fight in just a moment.
All right, and so we're going to see how Seaal is going to be doing with this damage output. Beautiful preemptive sentries there to be able to get some additional damage output. Nailing some bow shots. Gets bad pattern from Qualak. They're breaking the floor there. They have to be careful of the spikes. And another bad one where they have to adapt. Beautiful dashes immediately plinking into those bow shots there. And now we are going to be heading into the second portion of this fight sequence, where there's going to be water. So the damage output is actually a lot more complicated and a lot more difficult. So they're nice double jump tech in order to reset their downward velocity as they're falling. Nice dodge there from the black slime, and very nice fight from Seaal. Just 2 more hits. Yeah, there we go. Nicely done. As Lix is now going to be ending up using Sentry in order to break the ice. They didn't like that first one, so they were going to be setting for a second one. Oh no, the second one worked, Lix. Oh no. And so they take a death because they thought that the sentry was not close enough in order to get through, right? We see the sentries kind of like bobbing from left to right. And so Lix just was not confident in that positioning, but nicely done, just setting up for the backup, just going for it for a second time. As we see, Qualak now is going to be ascending into the ether as they are going to be high-fiving Ori after being freed from that parasitic enemy.
Yeah, and I'd like to point out Lix with those sentries. You're not supposed to be able to do this. You are supposed to get Grenade, which you can throw from a distance, and has a lot bigger of a fire hitbox. So hitting these lanterns, getting that ice wall to break without having Grenade and only being able to use the tiny little sentry hitboxes, it's a lot more difficult than both of our runners have made it look. So props to them for being able to get that so well. And Lix with a really nice insta-kill on both of those little flying enemies there. We'll be finishing off this fight in style, again, with the extra damage from Reckless helping out even more against the Gorlex, which just require 1 bash for Lix's insane damage output. When they turn around or when they start to swing, Lix just obliterates them from behind. They will now be headed to their own Bowers escape, hopefully able to get the same cutscene skip that we saw Seaal get earlier in order to save a bit of time on the start of this. And then from there, it's just an escape for them.
Yeah, and like really cool thing from Lix's side as well. It's just like, once again, nominative of Lix to go for all these optimizations. In that arena, they actually ended up saving a number of frames just simply because they skipped 1 bash over their opponent, which was really cool. I've never seen that sword setup that they did in that specific spot, but Lix on the right, they have to land in a very, very particular and precise spot. They get the skip first try. Beautiful stuff from Lix. Just nailing that. Ooh, yeah, nice. Able to get over that log and also dodging the spikes so far as they are going through this escape sequence. But Seaal on the left. Man, there's just so many things to talk about. Oh no, feeding ground skip. Come on, Seaal is trying to nail these midair sentries. Yeah, they're going to go for the grapple and another midair sentry. Okay, there we go. Just a little bit of a struggle bus because it is a frame perfect timing window, exactly a 3-frame separation between those inputs. But Seaal is just able to just keep their calm, use glide to be able to keep themselves in the air, and then just continuing to go for those midair sentries in order to be able to skip like a small portion of a cutscene, as well as sequence breaking a trigger that starts feeding grounds, sort of a sneak sequence, which also creates an instant kill death plane. So skipping both of those, very nicely done. We're absolutely going to see Lix also utilize that sequence break, but Seaal still in the lead. They are going to be the first to make it over to the burrow tree.
Yep. Burrow is the first skill we've actually picked up in a long while. Again, since we don't need anything from Moldwood or Bowers, and we get Water Dash early, we actually haven't seen a new skill since Glide and Flap so long ago. But Seaal will now have Burrow. Burrow is, of course, completely required in this area filled with sand, as we're going to see right here. Yep, you just needed to get out of that right there. But it does manage to get up and through the sand pits. I believe both of our runners are playing on keyboard and mouse, which can make the burrow movement a little bit more difficult, as you only have 8 directions to burrow in, as compared to all of them on something like controller. But Seaal managing to completely destroy this first about half of the burrow segments. But of course, the big burrow test is still yet to come.
Yeah, so we're going to see how Lix is going to be doing on this fight. Seaal, though, for just a little bit of a state of a race update, because we do see that the timers are out of sync. Don't worry, that is completely normal here in Will o' the Wisps. We're actually using a timer with loads removed for the sake of the tournament in order to increase comparability, right? And that basically means that the only thing that we're running, the only thing that we're trying to time the runners on is the gameplay itself in order to make it more fair in a competition setting. But that being said, we see Lix on the right entering the combat phase for Qualk. They also get the bad phase. They actually end up taking a damage from the spikes there. They have to be so careful at 2 health, especially coming into the final phase after the water ends up starting to come up. But Lix just looking pretty good so far. But man, Turtle, this could go really poorly, because if Lix takes a death, they actually have to start the fight sequence from the start, even before the water actually ends up filling up. But Lix, yeah, nicely done, taking a little bit of a safer route. Nice dodge there from the hands high five, and Lix gets the worst possible pattern. The Qualk going down into the water and Lix being in the water at precisely the wrong time. They actually have to end up sitting in that phase. But Lix on 1 health, 1 energy, in a dream. They are absolutely going to be playing safe. Lix, no, please just get through the fight. And they're able to close. What are these boss fights from Lix, Turtle? Oh my god, dude, my heart.
That's so dumb. Those patterns are absolutely the worst. The underwater phase, you can't do anything, so Lix just had to keep swimming away, couldn't get out. But then that phase where Kolok spits the poison, those things linger in the water for so long. Lix just clipped one and then barely lived. I cannot believe that he managed to finish that fight. Incredible improvisation from him to just not die.
Man, I know, you know these intro videos that to like share those casting clips where the casters are just losing their mind? Like, I know what the next MQO tournament is going to feature. I'm just saying. Those boss fights were absolutely ridiculous from Blix. Just with those backup strats, just being able to close out that fight, right? Because if they took a death, right? If he took a death, then he would have had to restart that entire fight sequence over again, which is a lot of times, right? So like just taking those like 5, 6, 7 seconds in order to slow down and just like be relaxed, in order to just be able to close out that fight. Just really impressive stuff, especially in a no reset tournament setting, that we see both of our runners having to sort of maintain that stress, maintain that duress in order to get through. And as we see Seaal going through Story Time Temple, and Lix just saying goodbye to Qualak as they end up ascending into the ether, we're going to see probably, honestly, the hardest escape sequence on the left from Seaal on keyboard and mouse. Isn't that right, Turtle?
Oh yeah, definitely. No one has ever nearly screwed this up and caused the casters heart attacks before.
Nope, not me.
Definitely not. But this section, as sort of the end cap of this area, features quite a bit of burrowing in a very time-sensitive context, where if you don't get it, or if you bonk off walls too many times, a giant sandworm will insta-kill you and you have to start the entire escape over again.
Yeah.
So Seaal will, once finishing this cutscene, will be sprinting away as fast as possible from the giant evil worm. Hopefully will not have to do it more than once, because yeah, it can be pretty major time losses if you manage to bonk in some of the ending sequences. Meanwhile, Lix is going to attempt the feeding ground skip themselves. We saw Seaal miss a couple of aerial sentries. Lix absolutely nailing the ones they've attempted so far. Okay, I just almost cursed that, but okay. They do touch the ground, so we'll get a little bit of a cutscene, but it is much better than actually landing on the ground below, which would trigger the stealth segment. Again, very, very slow. But Seaal takes a death. luckily pretty early into the escape, but a death is a death nonetheless.
Yeah, and like so Seaal is going to be coming through this escape sequence. They are going to continue through using glide here in order to avoid those damage spikes we're going to see now upcoming into this next area. What are they going to go for? They go for the burrow exit, not quite getting the speed they necessarily wanted to. Nice optimization there with the sentry jump in order to get up. And so Seaal continuing to go through this escape sequence as we see Lix now also going into this area in order to get towards the burrow tree. Nice grapples there to be able to go up those lanterns and get through. Yeah, nicely done. One more sentry jump from Lix. Nicely done. And so Seaal on the left, giving a little bit of a tail tug there on the enemy. Oh, goes for some like advanced movement there to try to go fast, but no, doesn't quite get the burrow. And so the boss rubber banding quickly up to them. They have to be so careful. Okay, they're able to get out of that, but it's not over yet, Turtle, because upcoming here is going to be the most painful thing for keyboard and mouse, because only 8 coordinate burrow movement and using these dashes off the walls can bonk. Are they able to get through? Yes, they're able to get out. So Seaal getting out of that escape sequence, second try, with only a little bit of an early death in the escape, only losing a little bit of time. But Lix, I mean, the story for both of our runners, right? Seaal is massively in the lead by a number of minutes, but Lix, we heard at the end of the qualic fight with that beautiful backup strats, were able to stay just within 6 seconds of their personal best. Lix is absolutely on fire here.
Yeah, no kidding. They are just speeding through this mid game ridiculously quick. Even if it's giving us heart attacks, they're seemingly really confident, able to keep pulling off all of these strats that they're attempting. Yep, it almost looked like the missile stopped following them, but nope, missile's still with them. They'll be able to continue on as Seaal does a little bit of a skip called patience skip, where they just wait 42.5 seconds, and it lets you teleport away without watching a cutscene that is longer than 42.5 seconds. So that cutscene out of the way, Seaal now only has one area left to go. We'll be heading on over to Weeping Ridge to get launch, and then to the final dungeon of the game, the Spirit Willow.
Man, I keep saying that. Yeah, beautiful stuff from Lix. Lix just knows exactly how much help they need. And this is, once again, Turtle, do you know what I'm about to say about Lix?
I forget the word. I'm sorry.
This is very nominative of Lix, right? This is just exactly who they are. They took 2 intentional damage boosts through lasers in order to get through like just split seconds, if not seconds faster through these sections. It's just like I just always. This is why I love watching Lix speedrun. It doesn't matter if it's MQO. It doesn't matter if it's like in any percent category. It doesn't matter if it's randomizer. It's just like they're just always on top of all of these like incredible optimizations, just all over the place. And so very impressive stuff. And it's like, no wonder that they're within like a number of seconds from their PB, right? It's just so incredible to see that they're continuing to perform as they are heading through Storytime Temple. But Seaal on the left is now going to be approaching the most amazing tree within the entire game, which is going to be launch.
Yep. Like we mentioned earlier, launch is ridiculously broken in this game. It lets you bash off of anything, well, off of yourself, I guess. You can refresh it by hitting a wall, hitting a floor, hitting an enemy. Basically, anything you do will refresh your launch, and therefore our runners will be expertly chaining launch to just leap and bound through this area at breakneck speed, as we are already about to see. Touches a wall, launch. Touches the floor, launch. Touches the teleporter, launch. Touches enemy, launch. Touches the wall, launch. And Seaal is just right back up to the elevator.
Yeah, I think an amazing thing about launch as well, as we see Seaal doing a beautiful sequence break there, is they're going to be touching the spikes intentionally in order to reset launch, is that not only, like, launch is amazing because it allows you, as Turtle mentioned, to bash anywhere, but more importantly, or not more importantly, almost as important of a note is that, like, launch also resets dash, right? It resets double jump. And that can be like absolutely massive when you're working through specific sections. But Seaal is going to be the first to make it into Willow's End as we're coming into the final leg of the run. But Willow's End is going to be one of the most technical, one of the most difficult areas as Seaal does their first sequence break, skipping having to do that boulder escape there. Just beautiful stuff from Seaal. And so we're going to see how they are going to go through and be able to execute as they continue through Willow's End.
Yeah, there is quite a bit of skipping that you can do of the cutscenes in Willow. Lix won't be able to skip the cutscene that they're coming up to next, but Seaal will be able to skip 6 of the 8 heart cutscenes in this area. Takes a little bit of damage, Seaal, but is going to make it through. Already on their second heart out of 8, if they can just get through this portal, yep. So doing really, really well in Willow here. As Licks will be there shortly, all they have to do in order to get there is, of course, the really dangerous, really easy to bonk in with keyboard and mouse, burrow escape. Again, we saw Seaal take a death in this escape. So if Licks can get through first try, that'll be a slight time advantage to them to get them to try and come back to gain the lead.
Yeah, so this is really massive from Seaal. So we're going to notice a bunch of QTMs at the hearts itself as Seaal setting up for Quidditch. Okay, nice launch there to be able to get over. This is incredibly precise. Yeah, they are able to get that beautiful bash angle. So Seaal taking a very fast cycle there on that heart. And so something I was trying to explain is that we're going to see Seaal fire the bow and then dash away from each of the hearts. And this is actually incredibly important because in Orient Will-O-Wisps, it uses a checkpoint system in order to save the game. So if Seal's able to nail these timings with destroying the hearts and then hitting the checkpoints themselves, they are going to be able to quit to menu as, not quite getting the height that they want on this bash. They're getting a little bit trolled here by the elemental. No problem. Nice back from Seaal. And this is like what we've seen from Seaal throughout this entire race is that if they make a mistake, no problem. They will just end up like taking a nice and steady backup. But on the right, Licks is now entering the escape sequence in Storytime Temple.
Yeah, they've already had a slight bonk or two. Nothing that has actually gotten the worm to catch up to them, but might be feeling a little bit nervous heading through already. They're going to take the wall, tries to aerial sentry jump, doesn't make it, but nice, quick enough to get back to the wall in order to escape the worm and make it up to this aerial section. You're going to glide nice and easy on through before they head up through this jump pad to the section where you can clip into the tail. We saw Seaal do this earlier. The tail's hitbox is just not entirely as big as it is visually. So yep, this gives those spikes a little bit of a hug too as they now make their way through. Does manage to burrow up through this section that we saw Seaal nearly take a death to. And now all they have left to do is a couple more tricky sections. Licks does slow down to just make some of those angles a little bit easier, which I definitely approve of as, they're bonking on the floor a little bit here. The worm's catching up. They have one escape, couple bonks, but no, Licks is through. That is the Sandworm escape finished for them.
Yeah, literally just absolute sigh of relief from me, from Turtle, from Licks. I'm absolutely certain of just getting through that escape sequence. And as you mentioned, I was just really impressed by Licks just like intentionally slowing down their various legs in order to just make sure that they didn't bonk off a wall in order to be able to continue through. But here, Seaal is just going to be, cool, they picked up Wing Clip. I love this. So this Wing Clip deals additional damage to flying enemies. And so here, Seaal is going to be able to use that extra bit of damage output to absolutely melt the bots with that bow tech. Just beautiful stuff. And I honestly, out of shards, Wing Clip is like one of the saddest shards to me within this entire game because Wing Clip deals additional damage to flying enemies. Guess which enemy Wing Clip does not deal additional damage to? If you guess Qualock, well, yeah, Qualock's not flying, but if you guess Shriek, then yes, Shriek is like an enemy that Wing Clip actually does not deal additional damage to. With Seaal taking a little bit of additional time, so their cycles are actually going to be a little bit off here on the left. Yeah, they take an unintentional death there, just a little bit of time loss. And oh boy. Okay, Seaal having a little bit of a struggle bus here in this laser section, just trying to catch a very specific cycle, and they're able to get it that time. So here they're actually going to be on a sliver of health, which is not ideal, Turtle, because normally we actually like to take a sequence of damage boosts in order to get through here. But I just have to wonder, is like Seaal watching the stream, right? We'll have to like ask the runners if they were watching each other as they were racing in the post-game interview, if they end up joining us for that. But yeah, Seaal just healing up to full so that they can damage boost through those lasers and continue through the section.
Yeah, lasers deal quite a bit of damage, especially since we have either Overcharge or Reckless equipped. Oh my god, like that. Pepto-Bismol in this area, the fire will instantly kill Seaal, as now will literally anything on the amount of health that they have left. Luckily, quitting to menu will reset them to 4 health, so there's a little bit of a buffer there, but no fear whatsoever making it through those very perilous sections with death on every wall, every floor, and every ceiling, still managing to find their way through. And that is their 8th Willow Heart. Now, Seaal is on to the final boss of this game, Shriek.
All right, this is it for Seaal. If they're able to close out this fight, that will spell victory for them. And that is an absolute critical moment, especially for the state of the tournament itself in a competitive sense, because here in this tournament, it's going to be a single elimination for every single match within bracket phase except for the grand finals themselves. So Seaal, coming into the first phase of Shriek, we're going to see what they do. Yeah, they bait the nice middle start. They get the leg up. That is beautiful. Using that launch and the double jump in order to get up. And nice, they bait another mid hit there from Shriek, so they are going to be progressing through into this escape sequence. But it's not over yet, because we still have 3 more phases in this fight, starting with this escape sequence. So we're going to see what Seaal ends up doing for tech as they go through. But the third phase, which is going to be the longest and arguably scariest portion for the fight itself, they did not get a launch reset, so they have to go for backup strats here with a mid-air sentry if they are going to want to do that. But that costs energy. Yeah, we see Seaal there debating whether or not they want to spend the energy, right? Because bow costs energy, and they need that energy for this third phase itself. But fortunately, there's going to be an energy crystal here that is going to allow them to refill. So nice pause there from Seaal to just sort of weigh their options and decide exactly what they wanted to do before heading into this phase.
Yep. Phase 3 is definitely where most of the time loss and gain in Shriek can be found, as the phases themselves are random. So that was a decent phase. Seaal doing a little bit of spooky movement there, nearly falling out, but does manage to get in. A yell attack is also really, really good. We will see another good attack. Yep, the bird will have a couple of damageable parts in the middle of its swoops.
Wow.
And oh, Seaal is out of energy though. They only have sword left to finish off this fight. Going to get a little bit of a bad pattern here with the swoops. And another bad pattern with the feathers. They're losing just a little bit of time here to RNG. They also still don't have bow. So when they finally are able to damage Shriek again, they'll need to do it by sword. Oh my god. Over the cliff again. Seaal does manage to get the damage, and we'll be moving on to phase 4.
Yeah, so intentional death here from Seaal in order to refill energy, as well as bring that energy crystal back up. We're going to see if they actually end up swapping to regen here for a little bit of health. Nah, Seaal is just completely confident here, man. So on the left, Seaal is going to be entering the final phase. They got a double 4 break in the third phase, so they are going to only have to see Shriek stomp twice, which is a very, very nice setup and pattern for Seaal itself. So here, able to dodge the first swoop, the second swoop, and all these are incredibly consistent. Seaal, what are you doing? Oh, they missed the sword slash, but they were actually, no, they were able to get damage there. But Seaal, oh man, just going for very scary stuff, and they're able to take down Shriek. And so that is going to spell time for Seaal, finishing off with like about a 59-43, about with a sub 1 hour time in their first performance here in the bracket phase in the MQO 2023 tournament. Beautiful stuff from Seaal, and just absolutely making a statement, right? A sub 1 hour in a no reset run turtle. Are you kidding me? Man, Seal's next opponent must be shaking in their boots after seeing that happen.
Yeah, no kidding. Looking at our prelims, we actually only had 2 other runners who were able to manage a sub 1 hour, those being our top 2 seeds, Scarfelt and Ryan. So Seaal will now join them as in the sub hour club. Incredible performance, and it looks like he might absolutely have a chance now of beating Scar or Ryan in one of their future matches. We don't know who yet he will be up against, but yeah, definitely they got to be shaking in their boots. That was a textbook performance of how to race Main Quest order.
Yeah, and I think this is also the other amazing thing, right? Not only a sub 1 hour, but Seaal missed a lot of stuff, right? I mean, they finished within a minute of their personal best time here in a no reset setting, but man, just they had to do so many backup strats and so many just careful things. But I mean, this is the beautiful thing about Seaal. They're so good at mitigating time loss. So when they realize they make a mistake, they don't just lose a ton of time from that single mistake. Instead, they just turn that into a fraction of a second time loss, 1 second of a time loss, instead of something that could be potentially 10 seconds, 20 seconds of time loss. So just a beautiful textbook performance from Seaal, beautiful race strats in particular. But meanwhile, we still have a runner that is pushing through, and Lix on the right is continuing through Willow's End.
Yeah, still an incredible time out of Lix. Likely not going to beat Seaal here if they manage to beat the game within 46 seconds, technically, but they still have a couple of Willow Hearts to go. But nonetheless, absolutely stellar run from them, managing to weave through as well as they have, especially their boss fights. Lix still has a couple left to go, so I'm really hoping they can just have a good Shriek and not make my heart explode again.
Yeah, you know what, Turtle?
Oh, what?
Like, Licks may not be walking away from a win here today in the tournament as they are eliminated from the tournament because Seaal ended up taking the win here, but you know what could still happen? That's right, a personal best time. Licks, only four. Every single time I bring up the amount of time, Licks just takes an unintentional death. I'm sorry, my friend. But Licks only, I mean, I guess a little bit more, but 4 seconds away from their personal best time as they are chugging through here through Willow's End. As they are now coming into this boss fight, we're going to see it absolutely decimated with this bow tech, taking the intentional damage from the laser there. No, please get it under half health. Yeah, they are. Okay. So if you don't get the boss under half health before they start regenerating those rocks there, it actually does another regen phase at the end of it, which can be very, very scary.
Yep. Licks does manage to beat down the boss again, thanks to that extra reckless damage that they have. Will let them manage to do enough damage to skip that phase, and they manage to get through the Pepto-Bismol on their way back. That just leaves 2 more Willow Hearts for them before they will get to Shriek. We did see Seaal take a couple deaths at this part. Oh my god, and Licks also really low on health, but does make it through to the heart. There's still a lot more to go. We'll see if they decide to take a quick health reset like we saw Seaal do as well in the next room, just so they can damage boost through a couple of the lasers here as they make their way. No, they're not going to take any reset. They're just going to go with the floor health. But yeah, okay. That death there will reset their health to 4. Grabbing the extra brings it up to 7, and Pepto-Bismol still insta kills.
And so, I mean, Licks just went for look at this. Licks just going for an incredibly precise launch in order to try and avoid taking damage there from the health. And once again, okay, Turtle, quiz time. What's the word?
Nominative.
Yeah, there we go. Nominative. So this is just so nominative of Licks, just going for all these like incredibly optimal stuff, right? Because if you take a damage boost, it actually ends up stopping the launch preemptively. But if he's able to get through that tiny little hole for the laser, then they're able to get a little bit further. And so literally just saves like a frame or 2 or 3 in order to get through. But taking an unintentional death there, this is going to put them a little bit further behind from their personal best, but that's okay because Shriek, anything can happen in Shriek, Turtle. Like, as you were mentioning in that third phase, just, oh boy, it can be an RNG fiesta. But Licks, just an absolute boss, absolute pro at this game. So we are going to see how they're going to end up handling it. But yeah, beautiful sword slash launches there in order to be able to extend the height a little bit. And oh, beautiful backflip launch. That was so cool in order to be able to get through that slow zone a little bit quicker. But here we go. First phase, nice shot so far. They are able to get the leg pattern as well, going for the sword slash in order to be able to try and get Shriek into that stun. Nicely done. Just, once again, just so nominative of Licks just to know these things, right? Those sword slashes in order to get the Shriek stun, it was intentional. That was very much intentional in order to try and get a faster fight. And beautiful launch slide there off of the ground. Doing that at a very precise angle at uneven terrain is going to allow Licks to be able to build a little bit of additional speed. And they go for another one, not quite getting it, but oh, they have to go for the mid-air sentries, Turtle. Oh no, when Shriek comes through, they get the hit, but they are able to get up there and sustain themselves in this escape.
Yeah, will be a little bit low on energy. And again, we only have that 1 crystal at the start in order to help regen that. So Licks looks like they're going to take it, not going to take an intentional death refill. Luckily, again, Licks has the extra steps of Reckless, so we'll have more damage per bow shot than we saw Seaal have. And after nearly falling off, we'll be getting up, doing some expert sword slashes to get some extra damage in without bow. Unfortunately, getting a feathers phase can't do damage during this part. Licks is just going to dash around, maybe have a little bit of fun. But once a Shriek comes back, we'll be yelling. Licks does not want to take the damage boost here. They have just a little 1 cell of energy left, and their sword slashes to try and finish off Shriek here. In terms of phase 3, yep, out of energy, so it's only sword slashes. Ooh, they will need to take another phase.
All right, and so here they're going to be coming into this nice pattern here at the end. They are just going to be using those bash shots. They're trying to deal damage, but those angles are very slightly off on those bash shots. But here, trying to use sword shots. No, they are going to have to take another phase. And oh no, bad RNG for Licks. Oh, that's so sad, dude. But that is okay because Licks is just showing off their survival instincts as they have 1 health. And here they are going to get a pattern. This is probably not the pattern that Licks wanted. Yeah, there was literally like 1, if not 2 hits away, Turtle, from being able to close it it out, but they still have to stay alive until they see Kuro go back. Yeah, and they are going to take the intentional death in order to reset the health. They are able to get that 2 stomp once again in order to break that additional ground. So very nice from Lix to just once again just be really realizing what they need to do in order to speed up this boss fight. But there we go. We're going to see Shriek now do 1 stomp, do 2 stomp, and here is going to be the final leg, Turtle.
Yep. Luckily, all 4 of these first swoops are scripted. Our runners know what directions they'll be coming from, so Lick's able to avoid them very easily. Did also regen at the start, so has a little bit more health to be going here with. Almost falls down, but no, does manage to finish off Shriek, and that will be time 4:55. Still a great time for Licks to finish off this run, and actually
I believe that was a PB by like a maybe. It's very close.
Tied their best time from prelims at least.
Wow.
Yeah, exact same 1:04:55.
Impressive stuff. And so I think with the crawl, this is going to put them just slightly over PB, but still just an absolute incredible performance out of Lix. And so really, I mean, the story today, Turtle, is that like Seaal, we knew coming into this, had the advantage coming in, as Seaal is going to be walking away with the win and sustaining their life within the tournament bracket itself. But also just Seaal just playing just very consistent, very smooth, very, very, very safe in a lot of sections as well, with just beautiful backups, mitigating all that time loss in various movement sections, and walking away with a sub 1 hour time within their first here performance within the bracket stage itself. Lix, for their troubles, ended up taking the loss here, so this is going to spell the end for their tournament journey here so far. But we just saw some really incredible, impressive stuff out of Lix, and man, those boss fights, we're absolutely going to be asking Lix about those boss fights, man. I'm very, very excited.
Honestly, even though it still had a little bit of help for Shriek, that last bit where they just didn't have energy, oh my god, my heart, I can't.
All right, and that being said, we see both of our runners here are going to be on deck and joining us in here to ask some questions about this incredible match. Seaal and Lix, GG's, my friends.
GG's.
Yeah, so I guess like the first question here that I have was for each of you, starting with Seaal. Were you watching your opponent throughout this tournament race, or were you just sort of like focused on yourself and just trying to get your lowest time, as opposed to seeing what your opponent was doing and how far ahead or behind you may have been?
Yeah, I generally would never watch an opponent in a tournament race.
Right.
I just think it's sort of you put unnecessary pressure on yourself if you're ahead or behind. So I just focusing on myself. But I did, when I have light sweet running and I knew my time was good, I was feeling pretty confident in the race overall. From probably like around about halfway through the race onwards.
Word. And you, Lix?
Oh, no.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew the route was different, so watching the opponent just not giving you anything like hint. Where are you?
Yeah,
Word,
for sure.
Cool. Turtle, you can go ahead if you have one.
Yeah, absolutely. For both of you, I want to ask some stuff about the boss fights. Let's start with Lix. You had some stupidly close moments, like with a sliver of health on Kolak or without energy on Mora. How do you manage to pull off those moments? Like, what's going through your head? Are you just going on pure momentum and energy, or are you thinking out every little thing that happens when you're that close to losing or winning the boss fights?
I mean, I'm constantly like checking if I have health or energy, and yeah, that moment in Mora when I just didn't have enough was scary. But yeah, I mean, you can have some time to, I guess, get some energy from Crystal. So yeah, it's fine.
I mean, you ended up fine, but our hearts, oh man. And then Seaal, on the other hand, you had some of your only mistakes were a couple small deaths to Mora and the burrow escape. What's going through your mind when you make those? Are you just trying to shake off nerves? Is it just smooth sailing with the rest of it and try and keep focused on that? What's going on?
Yeah, I think you gotta, in a reset setting, you've got to be able to take those kind of things in your stride. I think the one in the Sun One escape was just unlucky. I just like burrowed accidentally into the ceiling and it shot me straight out of sand and straight into the spikes. The Mora one was a lot more messy. It was just sort of not great play on my part, and then I maybe could have tried to heal before the as the darkness was falling in that sort of second part of the second phase. But I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna YOLO it, and then I instantly regretted that because the first attack she did, I misread it and I dodged the wrong way because I thought it was going to be a different attack, and I instantly died. So that was not a particularly well done boss fight for me on that one.
Well, the remainder of the boss fight was absolutely great, so props for that.
Yeah, so a question for Lex. I hope you rewatch this because there's one word that I continued referring to when I was talking about your play in general is just very nominative, which basically means this is very representative of this person whenever we see them perform in a speedrunning setting. Just like busting out all these really impressive, all these like optimal things just all over the place. When you're considering routing for MQO, do you have specific considerations? Do you adapt? Do you do different things? Or do you just sort of like bring in strats that you have sort of optimized in different categories?
I mean, the one different thing that I'm doing in MQO is trial, which gives me an option to buy to upgrade the reckless, and that is only because I'm like bad at bullfights and I hate them, so I have to increase the damage somehow to make them shorter at least. So that was my concern.
Yeah, I guess another question off of that. For Spirit Light routing in order to consideration, have you just always sort of done the trial, or did you like play around with different Spirit Light sort of routes, or were you just like, yeah, I'm just gonna take the 1K, right? Like it's a very quick trial, it's very, very fast to do, and it gives us some really nice money in the bank.
Well, I just wanted to like upgrade Reckless twice, and then you have to have like 1,200, I guess, and 1,000 from Spirit Light. It was from Spirit Trial. It was just like a lot faster than anything else.
Right, and like hitting that shop, right? Like in that first pass through Glades. Yeah, word. Cool. Yeah, Turtle. Do you have a question? Oh, sorry. I just saw your post. So I'll ask 2 more questions overall. So I guess a question for you, Seaal. Coming up into your next match, you are going to be moving on into through the tournament. Congratulations on the victory. Up next is going to be Ryan versus Dowry. Do you have an opponent that you would be a little bit more spooked out for facing, or are you just ready to move on in brackets and just play your own game?
Not really afraid of anybody who isn't Scarfelt. Just to be clear, I am terrified of Scarfelt. Yeah. I would like to race Ryan because I think that would be a super fun, super close, sort of, just a really enjoyable race. And Ryan is very, very, very close to me in leaderboards. And I think Ryan still has the edge over me in a no reset fashion. He's like extremely consistent, and I am just not. As you can see towards the end of this race, I sort of forgot how to play the game in some sections, and that was really awkward. Right. But yeah, I've been friends with Ryan for a long time, and we've definitely helped each other out a bunch over the course of our MQO careers.
Awesome.
So yeah, that'll be really fun race.
Are you going to adapt your routing at all, or are you just going to continue practicing the same stuff?
Everything is going to be the same. I'm just hoping we can just cut out more of the mistakes, so
awesome.
that the time is better.
Honestly, I just have to say this. I really respect the way you route, like in tournament settings. I literally do the same thing. I just go for lowest average instead of going for full optimal. I love that. Very, very cool stuff. But yeah, that being said, so Lix, this is going to spell the end of sort of your tournament journey here in the MQO fashion. Very impressive stuff still. Congratulations on all of the amazing things that you were able to showcase here. So just an open question. Do you have any sort of thoughts on your journey here through the MQO tournament? And what are you going to be doing next with Ori speedrunning?
Well, I'll try to help with MQO, like the rest of MQO stuff, but I don't have any plans on speedrunning it. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Yeah. That is completely reasonable. Well, GG's to both Lix and Seaal. Seaal is going to be taking the win here in the bracket phase itself, but don't go anywhere, folks, because we are not done yet we are actually going to be casting the next match, which is going to decide which opponent Seaal is going to be facing in the semifinals of the tournament itself. We are going to be featuring off Ryan, the 2nd seed, versus the 10th seed, Dowry. But that being said, my screen name is Covert Muffin Casting. And I was also joined by Turtle. Thank you so much for joining me. And we are going to be casting the next match as well. But also major thanks to 2Kill, who did an amazing job with restreaming. Absolutely great stuff with busting out those tech fixes on the spot in order to be able to showcase this amazing match here today. And then major thanks to Bobby's with the help with the stats and also tracking throughout the entire match. But that being said, we will be right back after a short break, and we will look forward to seeing you in the next match with Ryan versus Dowry with the MQO tournament in this wonderful year 2023. See you soon, folks.